I'm going to go ahead and have Chief come up and Sergeant, is Sergeant Gibbons still in the room? Okay, but that's okay. Sergeant Pruitt, you can speak to it. And Chief Gernon, if you'll come on up too, because you're over at ISD. And this is if we have questions that, I'm going to turn and let you speak directly to someone who might have the question if you have one.
Everybody rolling?
So, okay, you ready? All right. So this morning we are releasing the body-worn camera footage, or actually be specific with it. We're going to show camera footage of a shooting that occurred a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it occurred 2 weeks ago, Friday, this coming Friday. I don't have the date right in front of me, but I do know that we gave you that date. And it was the Walmart shooting. It involved one of our officers having to use her weapon. So the event involved a situation where a person, well, let me back up and tell you, I had 2 officers working an off-duty detail, which is common at the Walmart. And while they were working that off-duty detail, someone came up to them and said, hey, there's someone that appears to be passed out and unconscious in the parking lot, and he had just hit another parked car as he was parking into the parking stall. So both officers went out to make contact with this person, and when they got there, they did indeed find a young man who was unconscious in the car. This person was later identified as 33-year-old Gregory Williams. And there you could see hypodermic needles in plain view. So they knew they were probably looking at an overdose situation. And as our officers are trained, they were trying to save his life. So they administered 2 doses of Narcan to him. And of course, Narcan will have an immediate reversal of an overdose of opioids. And so that did occur. So Williams did come to immediately. And as the story has been relayed, how this event unfolded, the officers actually were able to engage him a little bit in conversation. They were trying to get him ID'd, things of that nature, when he suddenly did become erratic. Now, I should tell you that the car that he was occupying was still running. And so they were trying to get it into park and to be able to speak with him about what was happening with, first and foremost, his medical care. That was their first concern. But when he changed his dynamic immediately on them and became erratic, while one of the 2 officers, and I will identify them for you right now, the first officer is Rachel Wiley, and the second officer is an officer by the name of Salah Houdin. Salah Houdin. That's one name in the back, his last name. So Officer Michael Salah Houdin, and we will give you his spelling later. But it was Officer Rachel Wiley who was at the driver's door. That door was open. And when Williams did become erratic, he immediately put the car into reverse, and she was caught in that open door as he started to back up very quickly and rapidly. When he did so, he also hit another patron of the Walmart who was just trying to put groceries in her car but parked right next to him. I did see her at the hospital because he did strike her, and he appeared to have significantly injured her leg. It seemed to be like a crushing wound. And so she is still receiving medical care for that injury. But what you will see in this captured video is our officer being now caught in that front door as Williams starts to erratically drive out at a fairly high speed out the parking lot of the Walmart. As he comes onto the street, as he turns onto the street, the officer is still hanging onto the outside of this car. She is in a life and death situation. You're going to see how significant that situation is, and that is clearly a life or death situation. And she pulled her gun, and she did shoot twice, but she hit once. She hit Williams one time. You're also going to see a rather shocking situation where another truck is coming in the opposite direction now, and he sees what's going on, and he begins to brake as quickly as he could, and you're going to see Officer Riley being struck as she's falling out of that vehicle, and she falls into the front path of that oncoming truck, and she is lodged up underneath the truck. In the meantime, Officer Salahuddin is running. He has been running from the moment that that car pulled out of the parking lot, of the parking space, and he's able to get to her fairly quickly and start some immediate medical attention. Williams, however, continues down the road. After having been shot, he's been shot between that spot where he's pulled out, and Officer Wiley falls out of that vehicle, but it's almost like he's turning and she falls out. We have learned that she had some of her uniform was stuck on that car, apparently. So anyway, he goes about another block, Williams does, at a fairly high rate of speed. All those details will be given at a later date, and he strikes another vehicle. And he hits it at a very high rate of speed, which disables the vehicle he's in. Officers are already en route because Officer Wiley and Salahuddin were able to already put out over the radio that an officer's life was in danger, the code we use for when an officer's life is in danger. So we had a lot of cars coming very quickly, such that we had a lieutenant and the captain of that district was on that scene very quickly. They also cut the airbag out on the Williams car, and they too administered immediate aid to Williams. And one of the officers who was right on the scene is one of our newly trained MREs, and also started to administer life-saving support to Williams. Unfortunately, Williams died. So that is the overall situation, other than to let you know that Officer Wiley is a 9-year veteran. She is overall okay. However, she was injured, as you can see from that event. She is not medically cleared, but as normal protocol, we always put officers into a reassignment status while we do initial investigations. I can tell you that I think Officer Wiley is quite the hero. She kept her head in an extremely stressful situation. We are blessed by God's gracious hand that she was not killed in that event, and that her injuries are such she will recover. And so with that, we also extend always grieving families. We have a grieving family, and Mr. Williams, family and loved ones and friends. But that is the overall statement we have. Do you have questions you want us to answer for you? Yes.
So it seems like there was some dialogue
There was.
before he was arrested.
Apparently so, as I understand it. There was some, like, what's your ID, that type of thing. Who are you?
And was he able to respond at all?
You know, I can't tell you that level of detail. I just know that there was some engagement. The extent of that, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but it would be normal type of questioning. Yes.
Chief, that day you called it a high-stress situation. Can we talk about how dangerous the job of the NOPD
You know,
can be, even when you're trying to save someone's life?
Yeah, this is more than just high stress. When you have a situation, this is what I do call life-threatening. And so this is a scenario in terms of a life and death situation. So that's pretty high stress. And so that's why any call can turn on a dime. And these officers have to make split-second decisions. They are trained to recognize if they are in a life-threatening event. And yet, we can see clearly by this event, I even saw one of our reporters, when Shay, when I saw your face, even when she hit that car, you were like this. It is that, shocking. So with that, you can see that's clearly a life or death situation. And yes, it can turn on a dime.
Marco, we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
When reviving someone from an overdose
Yeah.
using Narcan or naloxone, what are kind of the risks of that person becoming erratic, or how do you prepare for maybe an erratic response?
That's a good question too, Marco. Our officers are trained, obviously, for people who can be erratic, and we administer a lot of Narcan, and people are not necessarily erratic like that, but they are aware of that state, that a person can come out of those unconscious situations and they're startled and they're erratic. But in this case, he had come out of the unconscious state and became erratic. That is clear. You'll see, obviously, a reasonable person looking at this is going to go, that's erratic behavior.
Shay?
And when it comes to the other victim who was hit while putting the groceries in her car,
Yeah.
I know that you said that she's still receiving medical treatment. Is she still in the hospital?
I believe can you speak to that? I think she was still. When I went to see Officer Wiley right after the shooting event, and she had been transferred to the hospital, she was in one side of the emergency room, and I was able to speak with her. And then I learned the other lady, whose name I didn't even know, was across the hallway, and I was able to see her. And it was very evident as well. Her sister was with her, and she had a significant damage. It appeared to me, I'm not a medical person, obviously, and I can't speak to the medical side of that. I just knew it was pretty significant. And she apparently is still receiving medical care for that.
Chris?
Superintendent, if you could talk
Yeah.
about just sort of the challenge of deciding, yes, we should administer Narcan
Yes.
when you're seeing the vehicle is
Yeah.
in drive, in gear, and that this driver, knowing that this driver could wake up and
Right.
something like this could happen.
Well, this is the life of what police do. There are a lot of dynamics usually in any event that are going on at the same time. So you have a car obviously not stabilized. You have an unconscious person in there. You're trying to, first and foremost, they were trying to save this man's life. And that was their first duty of care, was to try to help him. That was before any enforcement concerns. And so that's why, I'm going to defend our cops till forever, because these cops are, at so many times, people assign meanings to them that are unwarranted. And officers who have to use force in these situations, when that wasn't obviously their even thought, they come out to try to save a man's life, and indeed, in turn, he tries to kill one of our officers. And that's just unfortunate, and I'm sorry again for the family, but these officers need to be defended, and fortunately, our community does see them, I think, as heroes.
The vehicle that Officer Wiley was clipped into,
Yeah.
it looks like another person was in that vehicle at the time. Was there someone in the driver's seat of that vehicle?
Can you speak to that? I don't know those level of details about the other, like two people in the truck where she fell out was
Yeah, it
under.
seemed like someone was in that truck.
Yeah, even when I first saw this, I wasn't sure he was trying to purposely sideswipe to get her off the car. I mean, you could think that. I mean, I did initially. I thought, is he sideswiping our officer? But I don't know. Was there a second person in that vehicle?
In the pickup truck that she was.
Okay, go ahead, Sergeant. Come on up here.
Yes.
Talk to him. Come on.
Sergeant Pruitt, yes, there was somebody, basically the person was driving on the road, had stopped, and was in that vehicle when the other vehicle came upon, and she essentially was rolled into the car.
So she wasn't in park, or the other driver wasn't in park, but they just tried to get out the way of a vehicle from coming?
You're talking about the truck, right? The
Yeah,
truck
the
was stopped in the roadway.
Okay.
But it'd been
When-
coming, right?
right,
Yeah,
when
you'd
the-
see it again.
when the suspect's vehicle was driving again, you know. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah.
It makes, just clarify.
Okay.
You had a question?
Yeah.
I promise this is my last question. We talked about Officer Michael, I don't wanna butcher his last name. The way he broke out trying to get to her. I'm glad to hear that Officer Wiley is okay, but y'all all work with her. So what toll does this take on other officers when they see something like this happen to their partners? Cause we saw Officer Michael, he was gone.
You know, think about that. I mean, these are also not only medical issues, but these are emotional issues for you. And if your loved one or your partner or your whomever, these are like, to us, your partner's like your brother or your sister. I mean, that's the way we look at it. I mean, it's very much we talk about the family of policing. And you're seeing your partner, your brother, your sister in a life or death situation. It's an emotional, traumatic event for us. That's why, and I see we have Officer Abbott here, but that's why we actually do. Today we've transformed in the world of law enforcement. We now pay attention to officers' emotions, and not just the officer involved in having to use force, but everyone. It's just like Bourbon Street. We wanted 125 officers we've made sure were given the emotional support, the spiritual support, if they choose to have that, but we're mindful of that. Can you imagine that? I mean, this is what we do, but you can see what we do. So yes, that would be shaking, that would shake you up. Go ahead, Shay.
Just when it comes to the officers who responded and helped the suspect, Mr. Williams, if you could talk a little bit about that. So they were radioed in?
Yes, so the officers usually, as you can imagine, and we want to encourage you to come to a Citizens Academy and be exposed to these things. But our officers are also trained that radio is also life support for them. And so they will immediately, as Officer Wiley did and as Officer Salah Hadeen did, they got on that radio, we need help. And we use codes for that. And when that particular code comes out, that's when everybody comes, because it is a code that is not used unless these officers think that they are in a life and death situation, and that's when everybody comes. And in this case, we had a captain and a lieutenant who were like, it wasn't even their call, so to speak, and came immediately, we're on the scene. Everybody is there to first and foremost, and let me tell you about what Officer Salahuddin did. His first duty was to his partner, okay? Although the fleeing suspect is still going. His first duty, he did his first duty, which was not to continue after the fleeing suspect in this particular case, because they've already called in, knowing others are going to do that. His first duty was to care for her. And that's exactly how our officers are trained. So sometimes public who may not know, they'll think, well, why didn't the officer go get this guy? Because we've already called for that, knowing his duty was to her, and he fulfilled that duty.
Superintendent, while we have you here,
Yeah.
would you be able to give us any type of update on the 9-year-old who was shot in Algiers
Yeah.
and that investigation?
Yeah, so, she is still with us. She's alive. She's on life support. And the family is making decisions about that. As you can imagine, someone on life support, those are very hard decisions. Many of us in law enforcement, our own officers, have made decisions about that with family, and those are difficult decisions. So I believe more testing is occurring medically for little Leilani Brooks. With respect to suspects, we know that there was a shootout. We do have one of the main perpetrators with probable cause. We were, thanks to the U.S. Marshals, JPSO, our own officers, you saw yesterday, we're able to get one of the main players into custody. And so the case is still open because we know, an active situation of more than one shooter, and that case is being built out. And while you do have me, I am going to make a plea. There should be outrage in our community. absolute outrage. When is it going to be enough? And, I can sit here and talk tough, and I'm not. I'm not going to talk tough. This is not a matter of talking tough. This is stop it. And we're going to give directions, and I point to our assistant chief who came in the door. Something, we're going after everyone we absolutely know who we have a warrant for, who is engaged in violence, and my direction is, we're going to go get you. We are going to get you. We're going to take our list, we're going to hand it out to our officers, and their direction and mission is, you go get them. And I know that our community is sick and tired of it as well. So gun violence, so unacceptable. And here, it's one thing y'all shoot at each other. You take a child, and I'm done with you. So, okay, go ahead.
We received reports that a family member of the 9-year-old could potentially be turning themselves in. Could you talk to them?
I hope anybody who's involved here, some Crime Stoppers, and we're serious, something, we'll give you $5,000 cash. We know who, that y'all know who's involved in all of this. Cash. And that's just for one. So there are more than one player out there, and we will give you cash. And all you have to do is go through Crime Stoppers, and we don't want your name, we just want your information. If that information leads us to a shooter, you choose to carry a gun, you choose to be a felon or whoever and carry a gun, you let us know, we'll give you cash. And that number is 504-822-1111. Okay, go ahead.
Our last question
Two
goes
other
to
people
Winston.
detained for questioning in this case as well. One of them, I believe, was the person in the hotel with Evans Rogers.
I'm going to let the chief, because he'll know what he's comfortable with relaying and what he's not, because it's an open case. So I'm going to let the chief reference it. Go ahead, chief.
So your question is that there were other people detained at the hotel?
Well, how many more people were detained after Evans Rogers, and are they still in custody under questioning right now? Can you give us
So they were detained by Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, right? So they were taken into custody for them, so I'd refer you to them as to whether they're still in custody. But we are working to determine the extent of involvement by anybody that might be involved in this horrendous violent act that, 3 days ago, a little girl sitting in her front yard playing with her little sisters, and she has to flee gunfire, and as she's trying to protect one of her siblings, she gets shot in the head, right? Now her family's having to make some really difficult decisions. So we are working to identify anybody that might be involved. Individuals that are around these shooters should know that if they have information and they're withholding from us, then they're going to start being considered as accessories, or perhaps if they were involved in the beginning principles, like they all have some criminal culpability there. They all have some exposure. So we would encourage them to get on the right side of this, because they don't want to be on the wrong side of it once we're able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, because the community's giving us information.
Right.
The community's telling us what we need to know, and we expect that we're going to continue to follow these leads as long as
Yeah.
we can.
I'm going to make one last remark on that, because I do want to underscore it, and I want y'all to be sure you get this out. I really am not a woman who's tough talk. I am not a woman who's a cheap talker. I am not. But I will tell you, I am a woman and a police chief of action. And I mean it. We are coming for you. You can leave this city, or you can give yourself up, but we're coming. And we have a list, we do know who you are, and we're coming. So make some decisions on your part. I am a woman of action. Okay, go ahead, Shay.
Do we know if a family member of the girl was involved in that shootout?
I personally can't speak to it, and I don't know.
And we're still trying to put it all together. We're still
Yeah.
waiting on some
We don't want to
information.
compromise anything either, okay? So, all right, y'all, I think we've said enough. Uh-huh.
Yes.